Welcome to Primetime Football. I'm your host Sam Hoko, and we'll begin with yesterday's matchup between Liverpool and Arsenal. It's a game that ended up in a 0-0 draw, first of all. First and foremost, but in the first half it was all dominated by Liverpool. They were constantly attacking, and I thought Coutinho was going to score, and he could have scored as well if it wasn't for the works of Petr Cech. In the second half, it's a tale of two halves really, because Arsenal absorbed all that pressure in the first half and pushed on and almost had multiple opportunities to score in the second half as well. Theo Walcott was amazing in the game, as well as Oxlade Chamberlain, who came in later on in the matchup and added fire to Arsenal's attack. But it's a game that if Arsenal players and Arsene Wenger would look back, they would consider themselves lucky in regards to the game ending in a draw, because Liverpool were coming for blood from the first minute, and Brendan Rodgers was tactically the better manager at the end of the day. But now let's segue with Sunday's game, Chelsea versus West Brom. Chelsea won 3-2. It was a chance to see Pedro, the new signing Pedro, play his first 80 minutes or so. He scored in the first half, and so did Diego Costa and Azpilicueta. Prior to the game going completely mad when John Terry got a red card and Morrison scored twice. It was a cagey 90 minutes, but I'd say Chelsea escaped with all 3 points. Next game on the matchup is Everton versus Manchester City. It's a game where I'd predicted that Everton would win if Lukaku showed up, and he kind of did show up, but the back four of Manchester United seemed too tall of a task for him to actually score a goal. Game ended in a 2-0 win for Manchester City. Goals courtesy of Kolarov in the 60th minute and Nasri in the 88th minute after coming in for Raheem Sterling. Other matchups that took place this weekend, we have Bournemouth versus West Ham. Bournemouth won 4-3, a town which really resembles or reminds me of Jason Bourne. Bit of a side note, but it's a game where Bournemouth, a team that came up from the Championship, recorded their first 3 points in the Premier League. For a small team like that, it can only go up from here, I reckon. But yeah, Saturday as well, another matchup that took place is Swansea drew with Sunderland. Goals for Swansea came courtesy of Gomez, and Sunderland scored because of Defoe. And last but not least for the weekend, Manchester City played Newcastle. It's a game where Newcastle were not having it for Manchester United. I mean, it's one of those games where Manchester United didn't have enough firepower in the front four, and Newcastle just played more of a Stoke kind of game where they muscled the players off the ball and just defended, popped the boss a little bit, but it ended in a draw. Welcome to this week's installment of The Verdict, where we look into the weekend's fixtures and try to predict them. So let's start off with Newcastle versus Arsenal. Both teams coming in from a draw, but I reckon Arsenal's going to nick it off of like a 1-goal win, because they have a stronger attack, and I don't think that Newcastle can break or get past Petr Cech, who's just recovered his form, or barely. Next matchup is Aston Villa versus Sunderland. I reckon Aston Villa is going to nick it off of similar scorelines, maybe a 2-1. Bournemouth versus Leicester City, it's going to be a high-scoring game because of based on how much Bournemouth has been scoring, and they just came in from a 4-3 win. So I reckon they can score goals, but can they defend is a question that Leicester City is going to ask of them. Chelsea versus Crystal Palace, another really good game for Chelsea to win and then have 6 points in the bag in 2 games. But Crystal Palace won't make it easy. They have Zaha in their lineup, and he is known to score goals. Liverpool versus West Ham. Liverpool, who were strong favourites in my eyes in yesterday's matchup with Arsenal, would look to score goals, with something they couldn't do at Arsenal, but came close multiple times. So I have Liverpool winning that, maybe like a 2-0 scoreline. Chelsea winning the Crystal Palace game, maybe like 3-0, due to the likes of Pedro getting the scoreline. Manchester City versus Watford, looking to expand their the unbeaten record right now. So I reckon Manchester City is going to come up on top. Stoke versus West Brom is quite a difficult one. West Brom's dropped points against Manchester City and Chelsea, but this is a winnable game for West Brom if they can get their lineup together. But Stoke is known as a strong team. They play rugby football, and it might end up with being a draw or a close matchup between them. Tottenham versus Everton has got another good key matchup for the weekend. I can't pick a winner for this. Lukaku's slightly on form, but Tottenham look like a stronger side, so I might side towards Tottenham. But it's a close game. Might end up being a draw, actually. So a draw or a win. I know I'm picking two of them, but what the hell. Southampton versus Norwich. I have Southampton winning that 2-0. Swansea City versus Manchester United. Probably the game of the weekend. I think I'm going to side with Swansea. They seem more of a threat in attack, even though last week's result really didn't go their way. But they can definitely beat Manchester United, so I'm going to side with them. Well, that's it for the verdict, and that's it for Primetime Football for this week. Join us next week. Thank you.